All right, here we go. An epic battle. Etsy versus goimagine. I did a video a few days back on the differences as far as pricing and fees and all that stuff. So I wanted to do another video pitting the two against each other so we could really kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of each platform and see which one is better, which one has some opportunities, and which one would be the best for you. So this video, of course, is some of my opinion, but it's based on facts and findings after looking into both platforms. Now, things are quickly moving. There's always going to be updates and changes and things like that, but I wanted to break this video out into 5 different categories to rank each platform. And we're going to score this out and kind of see at the end of this video which one ranks higher. And you may be surprised at how at the findings and how close or which one takes the win, the W, when it's all said and done. So let's dive in and talk about each platform and put some rankings up here. All right, so the first category that I want to talk about and rank each platform in is the mission of the business. So we're going to just put up mission up here. Basically the business as a whole, kind of where we see it, how we feel about it. And we're going to kind of put this we're going to do goimagine up here, and then we're going to put Etsy as well over here to score this out after I talk about each to make it a little bit easier and, of course, visually appealing. And maybe I'll think of some cool stuff to draw while I'm at it for you guys because you like my drawings. So the mission of goimagine is that it's basically to donate profits to charities to help kids such as the Horizons for homeless children and a relief nursery, as well as it's a platform for handmade sellers only. It's like what Etsy was when it first started. They don't allow print on demand. You can't have manufacturers. You have to physically make and produce what you sell on the platform. So that is their mission. So they have basically they're for a good cause. They donate their profits to charities, and they're bringing back the old school, warm and fuzzy feeling of what Etsy used to be, where you had to be, handmade or vintage to sell on the platform. Now, it's handmade only, so I don't think you can even sell vintage on goimagine. Now, Etsy, they donate their profits to shareholders, right? Because they are publicly traded now. They're a public company, so their profits go to shareholders. The decisions they make have to go and to please shareholders, and shareholders are usually pleased when they're making money. So the decisions that Etsy is making is how to generate more revenue, how to make decisions to improve the money and improve their bottom line. And Etsy is no longer handmade only. You can have manufacturers, you can do POD, and really what that has done is opened up the floodgates to a lot of kind of spammy, scammy type people trying to sell on the platform, mass-produced items, and it really kind of took away the feel of how Etsy used to be. Now, Etsy has tried to crack down and enforce policies and stuff like that, but it really is an uphill battle. It's a struggle to be able to enforce this stuff, and when they take a certain number of shops down, just as many pop back up. So it's an ongoing battle. There's a lot of trademark infringement, intellectual property infringement, all those problems that come with any big e-commerce business. So the more they've grown, the more problems they've had. But at the end of the day, I think what really kind of ticks people off is the decisions that they made is for not for the greater good of sellers and buyers. It's for the greater good of their shareholders. Now, making money is great. We all want to make money, and the more money that Etsy makes and makes decisions based on helping us make money will make them money. But I think some of the decisions that they made aren't really based on what is best in the best interest or for sellers. And that's really what's kind of, grinded people's gears more or less, rightfully so. So I know they're trying to kind of change their image and do some things. So we'll see. It remains to be seen. But all this basically comes down to how we feel about their mission and their business as a whole. What out of 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, what ranking are we going to give them based on what I just talked about below? And I know some people want to do like a negative 5 for Etsy, but just 0 to 5. Let's keep it civil here. All right. So for goimagine, based on what I just talked about and all the good feels, I'm going to rank them a 5. And this, again, this is my opinion. You know, feel free to disagree. You know, don't rate me over the coals in the comments because you heavily disagree. But 5 for goimagine, and for Etsy, of course, it's going to be a 1. Not a 0. I'm going to give them a little bit of credit because they still, there's a lot of people that still make money, make their living on Etsy. So it's not going to do us any good to completely disregard them and what they've done, how they've actually helped people, you know, start their own businesses and make their living. So that is still good. The outcome has still been good. The next ranking that I'm going to do is going to be the seller experience, seller user experience. So what do I mean by this? Well, how we talk, you know, how we feel about using the platform and the features and, you know, navigating each platform and selling on the platform. You know, is it a good user experience? I'm not talking about bad support. I'm going to get there. All right. So all you people that are waiting to jump on the bandwagon here and talk about how terrible Etsy support is, it's coming. Don't worry. But let's talk about the actual platform itself, the user experience, how you feel when you use it. You know, is it seamless? Is it buggy? Is it clunky? You know, those types of things. So I would say, starting with goimagine, I think they're still lacking in some of the tools and features that helps the seller experience and helps kind of make things easier that Etsy has. Granted, Etsy's had a big head start. But as of now, shipping labels aren't integrated as part of goimagine. You have to use a third party or connect a third party such as Shippo to be able to see and print out your shipping labels. So that's one part of it. You cannot set up promotional coupons for adds to carts, favorites, post purchases like you can on Etsy, which helps conversions, helps drive sales. So I think that's a big miss. Another big one is they don't have their own payment processor. So this is a big deal because you have to set up Stripe and then you have to use them as a payment processor and connect that to your goimagine. Okay, it may not seem bad, but you have to do the extra steps to set up a Stripe account and then manage that independently of goimagine. And the problem that could happen is if someone disputes a charge or something like that. I think probably the biggest problem is disputed charges, and I haven't seen any huge issues with this, but I know just from dealing with my own Stripe account, if someone disputes a charge, you have to submit information basically proving that the charge is valid. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to be able to have to do those claims to be able to keep your money, because Stripe will take the money out of your account. And I don't know if goimagine will help with some of those disputes or not, but just know that there is a separate payment processor that you have to set up with goimagine, which is extra steps. Another one with goimagine is analytics. It's not as robust as Etsy. I don't see where there's a availability to see individual listing stats. Now, they do have overall shop stats, but I couldn't find individual listing stats. And then there also is no goimagine seller app. Now, there's a buyer app for goimagine, and there's also a maker circle app to support other sellers, which I think is fantastic. You know, that's a great to give people support. So those things are kind of some of the downfalls of goimagine. That they are lacking so far, and it doesn't mean they can't add these things in the future. You know, once they start, making up some ground. These things are not, I don't want to say easy because take time to build out, but at least if they know what they're lacking, they can kind of build on it. Now they have changed things to make, over time they have changed things to make it better, such as listing items is very similar to Etsy. They've changed it to kind of model Etsy's how you list items on Etsy, and putting keywords in there and your pictures. It's kind of similar, so that's not too big of a learning curve, which I think it's a good thing, because you're going to be doing, that's the most work that you're going to be doing is listing items, or you should be doing. Got to keep continuously list stuff, so you're going to be in there most of the time. So it should be easy to use. The other thing is shop setup is similar to Etsy. Your basic thing, you do a banner image, you do an about section. Those things aren't much different than how Etsy is set up. So again, small learning curve there. The other thing I think is a pro when it comes to goimagine is when you're looking at someone's listing, at the bottom it has similar products of their products. It's not putting other items in there that is not the seller's item. So I know a lot of people hate that Etsy does that. When you're looking at an item on Etsy it has similar products, but they're other people's products and they're not your products. Well, goimagine puts your products in there so people don't go off and buy someone else's products off of your listing, which kind of sucks, but goimagine doesn't do it that way. So I think that is a benefit and an improvement on the seller experience. So moving on to Etsy, kind of the opposite of a lot of things I just talked about. So Etsy has a a robust marketing suite, more robust than goimagine, to help sellers promote all their listings. Like I mentioned, the goimagine doesn't have, such as the coupons, adds to carts, favorites. Now you can run sales and do promotional coupons on goimagine and Etsy. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the automated discounts for adds to carts, favorites, thank you coupons, different things like that. The payment processor, again, I think that's a pretty big deal. The shipping stuff is a big deal. But let's face it, I mean, Etsy's had a huge bankroll for years. They have a huge head start and a huge lead on this stuff, whereas, goimagine doesn't, but it doesn't mean goimagine can't catch up. I'm sure they are very aware of what they're lacking and they're working on it, but they're super small compared to Etsy. So it's going to take time for them to build up and improve on these features and the stuff that Etsy has where they don't. So in comparison, what it comes down to, where we're going to score this at, I would say just because goimagine is lacking on some of the features that make it easier to sell and get conversions on the platform, I'm going to give them a 3. And then for Etsy, of course, it's very robust. They're already, love them or hate them. They're always adding new stuff, new features to help you as a seller. I know people don't like that. Some people don't like change, and they, freak out. Especially they're changing the listing, how you list stuff to make it more seamless. People hate it. Anything changes, people hate it. But just understand, selling on e-commerce, things are going to constantly change all the time. They're going to try to optimize, enhance, improve. Etsy 4.5. That's where I'm ranking them because there's still room for improvement when it comes to adding features, making things more seamless. But overall, I think comparatively speaking to goimagine, they do a good job. But even comparatively speaking to other platforms, Amazon, what else you got out there? Poshmark, you got Amazon, Poshmark, you got eBay. It's still easier, in my opinion, to use Etsy over all of those other platforms out there as far as how connected everything is. So that's my ranking. The next one I want to move on to is going to be support. This is the one you guys have been waiting for. You've been itching, you've been on your keyboard waiting to write a comment about support. Basically, I know you have. Oh, Etsy support is terrible. And I don't disagree. They have their issues for sure. And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm giving you a whole ranking section for support. Look how cool I am. All right, goimagine is first on the docket. goimagine has quickly become known for their stellar support of their sellers. The CEO is regularly involved in weekly live calls and putting out information to help sellers, which I think is good. Just connects everything. People are hearing from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And what I've heard, it's easy to get help from their support team. From issues and resolutions to issues, it just seems like there's less problems. Granted, they are a lot smaller, so of course there's going to be a lot less problems. I haven't had any issues myself using the platform to actually test this out, but I've heard a lot of good things as far as people getting resolutions to their problems. And from the comments online, it seemed like overall, it's a better experience. Obviously, it's the opposite if you go and look at Etsy stuff. Granted, again, the size does matter. Etsy's huge, has way more, 8 million or so sellers, so there's going to be a lot more problems when it comes down to that. However, goimagine, like Etsy, does not have a support number to call. I couldn't find one under the support tab. Just a support center, and then you can basically send them an email with your problem and hope that they get a response. It's hard to get fast resolutions to Etsy, not to Etsy. It's hard to get fast resolutions when you're doing it that way. Etsy, on the other hand, they have something similar. They have a support center. You can submit a case to get a resolution, whether you're a buyer or a seller. You go through the different steps, but they have live chat where you can get someone on live chat to help you with your problem. So that is a little bit different. goimagine does not have a live chat feature, and they both don't have numbers, which really gripes people, especially from Etsy, that they don't have a number that you can call. I know that's been a big point of contention, but the fact that goimagine, I don't see one either, doesn't make it any better. So there's problems on both sides there. So I would say, just I'm going to rank this, I would say goimagine. A lot remains to be seen here because they only have 6,000 sellers compared to Etsy's 8 million. But I'm going to give them a 4 just because the sentiment is better. You know, people just feel better about it, because I think a lot of it's just they're not a publicly traded company. They're not doing it for the shareholders, and the CEO is more involved. So I'm going to give them a 4, even though they have some of the same problems when it comes to Etsy. And because Etsy, because people are really PO'd about Etsy's support, I'm still going to give them a 3. I know I'm probably going to get torn up for this. I know some people are like, -3, -5. I'm still going to give them a 3 because there are processes in place to get resolutions. And I know people are going to say my account was suspended and I didn't know anything about it. I can't appeal it, this and that. The majority of those cases, I'm just going to be real here, guys. The majority of those cases, they did let you know what happened, and they're not letting you appeal it because you blatantly, overarchingly violated one of their big no-no terms, and as far as the seller terms. And chances are it was trademark infringement. Now, a lot of people just don't realize they're trademark infringing, or they're selling mass-produced goods. You just can't do that. You have to have a manufacturer partner. You have to be part of the design. Um, and you just can't trademark infringe, even if it's your design. You know, if you do a baby Yoda drawing, I know you're like, oh, it was my talents, it was my design, but still, it's still name and likeness. You know, you can't do that. It's protected by Disney. So a lot of people overarchingly are still making those mistakes, and then they complain because their stuff gets shut down. I'm not saying that there's not other mistakes. I've seen Etsy shut down shops mistakenly, but in all those cases, they get them reactivated for the most part. I've never seen a case where it was shut down by mistake. There's no violations, and they don't reinstate it. It may take time. I know that's kind of the big one. You know, you may be down for a couple of days where you can't get it back up, even though it was nothing. You did nothing wrong. I mean, that stuff happens. It happens with any company. There's mistakes made, but there are still processes in place. It's not like you can't contact anyone. You can't do any case. So those are my reasons behind those scores. Love it or hate it, give it whatever score you want, but that's kind of my reasoning behind when comparing those two together. All right, the next ranking metric is a big one. This is going to be buyer experience. How do buyers feel about buying on the platform? You know, we want them to be comfortable. We want them to come and buy more. And if they are, chances are they'll come back. It's easy to buy. You know, how does that make them feel? So when it comes to both of these platforms, goimagine and Etsy, you know, both have gift recipient options, so you can put in specific messages, have it sent to a specific place, not show the actual amount. So that's good. A lot of people are coming to these platforms to buy stuff as gifts, so I think that's really important. You know, both have apps where customers can order, so that makes it easy. More and more people are buying stuff online via apps. They don't want to go to a desktop, so that's a real deal breaker if they didn't have an app. Both have apps that are pretty easy to use and easy to buy from, so that is good. Both have similar, easy to use checkout processes, not much different. I would say Etsy has a nod when it comes to this though, because the overall look of their checkout is better, it's cleaner, it's more professional. Also, Etsy gets a nod here because they have other options to check out and buy. Other than credit card, you know, you can do PayPal, you can do Google, you can do Klarna, which allows you to set up a four-part interest-free payment plan. So if you have a bigger item and people can't afford it, they can do a 4-part plan that's built in. So more checkout options and buying options are a good thing for people that have different budgets and different ways that they want to buy stuff. So goimagine does not have those options. I only see a credit card option in there as of now. So I would say for all of these reasons, as far as the buyer experience, you know, most of the other stuff is pretty similar. But I would say that goimagine gets a 4 here, and Etsy gets a 5 because of those other options that are in place, especially when it comes to checking out. The last one that I have for you guys is going to be, and this is a pretty big one, that's why I saved it for last, is going to be traffic and buyers. extend these lines down. So traffic and buyers. So this is a big one. This is the biggest difference of the two. So when it comes to traffic, in a recent 3-month period, goimagine had 600,000 visitors. People coming and looking at their stuff. In that same 3-month period, Etsy had 1.3 billion with a B visitors. That's a pretty big difference. And kind of along those same lines, goimagine has 6,000. Sorry, this is crooked. 6,000 sellers, and Etsy has 8.3 million sellers. So quite a big difference. And yeah, sure, Etsy has a lot more competition, a lot more sellers, but buyers are significantly more. So, and this equates to Etsy on average does about 83 million buyers, or they have on average about 83 million buyers. So 1.3 billion traffic for a 3-month period. This isn't a year. So, and in a year, 8.3 million sellers, on average for a year, 93 million buyers. So that's a lot. That's a huge difference. I don't know the buyers when it comes to goimagine. I don't think that information is public, or they haven't made it public. But what we can do is, if we do the same percentages here and relate those percentages based on how many buyers we're getting from this traffic, and we relate it, we can basically, it's safe to say, a good estimate if all things else are equal, because basically what this comes out to is, this is about 0.0, what is it, 00, what do I have written over here? I want to make sure I got this right. 0.05%. 0.05% of what Etsy does as far as traffic. 0.05%. So if we take that same percentage of what Etsy does and equate it to what goimagine does, that basically comes out to 46,500 buyers. So we took this percentage and we did the same amount. So 6,000 in traffic equates to 46. Now I don't know what how close the conversion is from Etsy to goimagine. It may be higher, it may be lower, but I'm just using the same figures to kind of give an estimate. So when we know those, when we know those numbers, we can kind of break it down a little bit further. Well, how many sales is that per seller? So when we look at it, sales per seller, based on these numbers here for goimagine, it's around 7.75 sales per seller in this time frame for this traffic. For Etsy, it's bumped up. Basically, we take the number of buyers. Basically, it's 11.3 that I have written, 11.2. Obviously, I don't have all this stuff memorized. So 11.2 sales per seller, 7.75 sales per seller, based on the traffic and the relativity of the percentages here is how I figured it out. Hopefully the math is correct. But that's kind of what I looked at. So it's not that far off when it comes to the averages per seller. Now, so that seems relative. The problem is you're talking about a mountain more of traffic. You're still relating it to millions and billions and billions of traffic, whereas 600,000 is much smaller. So it's still a lot bigger lift to capitalize on 600,000 visits than it is to 1.3 billion. It's a lot easier to snag this just because there's a lot more opportunity there. So just the fact that it's so massive, it's going to make it a lot easier to snag some of that traffic and snag some of those sales. So again, even though these numbers are similar, the overall traffic and the amount of traffic that Etsy is getting is significantly more. So it's going to be a lot harder to snag some of these sales on goimagine than it is going to be Etsy. So that's the biggest area of opportunity, is the number of the traffic and the buyers coming to goimagine. That's where they need to focus on. And I know the first part was focusing on getting sellers, because if you don't have sellers, you don't have buyers, right? Now they're transitioning to get more traffic, and I've seen more ads and different things like that to be able to get more traffic and get more buyers to the platform. So I'm going to say that basically, because of this, because of such a huge difference in the total number, I gotta give goimagine a 1 here, just because there's so much. I mean, they are so low on the totem pole, when it comes to traffic and how much they're getting. I mean, Etsy is up there. I mean, they're probably in the top 5, up there with eBay, Amazon. Uh, you got Walmart online up there if you're counting them as an online platform. So they're probably in the top 5 when it comes to actually traffic, that they're getting. So it's a big lift, when you consider 600,000. I mean, goimagine is way, way, way down there, way, way far down there. So for that reason, I'm going to give goimagine a 1, and you got to give Etsy a 5. I mean, come on. I mean, that's a lot of freaking traffic. You can't deny that they get a lot of traffic, so that's why they get the 5. So here's what these kind of tally up to. When we're comparing the two for the Etsy / Goliath versus David / goimagine. When we compare these two, what do these scores come out to on average? So when we're taking all these and adding them up and dividing and getting an average, goimagine comes out to a 3.4 average score out of 5. Not too shabby, right? Not too bad. And I'm going to give Etsy, when you average everything together, 3.7. So not too far away. But there are some pretty significant differences, especially when you're talking about the business stuff and how easy it's going to be to make consistent, decent revenue. Again, goimagine has a lot further to go, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it can't get there. And it doesn't mean that you can't put another line in the water and test it out and start selling your stuff on there too. A lot of people pick sides, and I don't understand it. It's your business, so there's nothing wrong with selling stuff on goimagine, selling stuff on eBay, selling some stuff on Poshmark. That's what I did early on. I never heard of Etsy or what this thing was. I was an eBay seller. I found Etsy and I was like, all right, let me try it on here. Let me see how this goes. And it's took off. It's never stopped since. And now I don't really sell on eBay. So you just never know until you test the market, test your niche, test what you're selling, if there's another marketplace that could be better, or at least add another revenue stream. It's always good. A lot of people think in terms of very narrow in terms of their business and one revenue stream, one focus. Increasing your revenue streams, I mean, this is a whole nother topic for another video, but increasing your revenue streams will add more stability if one revenue stream takes a hit. And it will also test the waters to basically go in on another revenue stream. So that's always a good way to kind of think more dynamically than just a one and done. But that's the comparison of the two, Etsy versus goimagine. Let me know what you think. I'm sure you will in the comments, but hopefully it helps kind of clear things up for you, so you can test them out for yourself and see what works better for you.